For years after his Aston Martin won the prestigious annual European 24 Hours of Le Mans event, legendary racing driver Carroll Shelby purchased a tiny automobile business. This was in 1963. He has heart issues and is therefore unable to compete, but he still goes to all the races as a spectator and owner of one of the teams. For example, he angrily rejects the Volvo company, which wanted to sponsor him, but were sent away because Miles wanted nothing to do with Germans, but at the same time has a perfect feel for the track. Stands out British Ken Miles, who moved to Los Angeles, a garage owner, a former British serviceman. Shelby observes Miles doing flawlessly on the track, just as he would if he were riding himself. Unfortunately, Miles discovers from his wife when he returns from a race where he won first place for his son that his garage has been taken, leaving him with no alternative but to give up racing and find a regular job. Henry Ford II, the second owner of Ford, is outraged with his company's management, particularly the marketing division, over the sharp decline in sales at the same time. Lee Iacocca, the head of the marketing division, thinks that the decline is the result of young Americans starting to choose fast, race-winning European vehicles. To boost their image, he advises buying Ferrari, which, despite winning the most prestigious races, is bankrupt. Ford representatives travel to Italy and present the proposition to Enzo Ferrari, the owner of Ferrari. During the time it takes him to read the contract, Fiat makes him a better offer that won't restrict his actions. After receiving a presumably positive response to this wildly improbable question from Ford's representatives, Enzo launches into a tirade against Henry Ford, calling him a fat old shit and asserting that he is merely Henry Ford, second, not first, and always will be. After finding out that Enzo had made fun of him, Henry interprets the incident as a personal slight and orders his executives to take every possible measure to ensure Ford wins the Le Mans race. Shelby is the sole American race winner, so Lee Iacocca appoints him as a consultant in his company to develop a Ford race car. Miles agrees to accompany Shelby to the airstrip where he shows him a working model of the race car. After driving it, Miles says the car is terrible, but he accepts Shelby's offer to fix it. Later, Miles' wife makes headlines when he makes a pledge to stop racing, but when she learns how much money he'll make, she trades her rage for compassion. Miles spends countless hours on the track debugging the car and has a unique grasp of it that no one else possesses. He naturally disagrees with the direction supervisor, who has a less than favorable impression of Ford cars in general, and he forbids Miles from competing since he lacks the necessary diplomacy. As a result, Hill and McLaren enter the 1964 Sierra Leonean Le Mans event, but neither of their vehicles finishes because they ran out of fuel during the race, exactly as Miles had predicted. Shelby is hauled before Henry Ford and persuades him that the race wasn't a complete failure and that Ferrari was terrified by Ford's car when it established a speed record at the finish line. Shelby is given complete freedom by Ford, enabling him to avoid the management. Miles has restarted his firm, and he is working with Shelby on a second race vehicle model. However, 2 years later, when the brakes fail in one of the tests, and Miles almost dies from automobile burns, things become complex once more. Because of personal hostility as well, the new handler wants to ban Miles from racing, but Shelby sneaks Ford into the race car and accelerates him around the testing facility. Ford, overcome with emotion and feelings of speed, is unable to reject Miles and accepts his offer to perform at Le Mans if he wins the 24 Hours of Daytona race. Otherwise, Ford takes over Shelby's business. A disappointing surprise arises at the Daytona race when Ford fields his second team, which is handled by NASCAR mechanics. As a result, the second team's pit stop durations are drastically shortened. At the finish line of the race, Shelby suggests Miles turn up the engine speed to 7,000 RPM, and he wins. Miles had difficulties with a door that won't lock at the start of the race in Le Mans, but one of the mechanics eventually fixes the door with a hammer. Miles starts breaking records and catches up to the Ferrari. But Miles again struggles with his brakes during a close encounter with the Ferrari driver. Shelby makes the decision to replace the car's brakes during the pit stop, despite the fact that many people think it's unfair and that such important components can't be changed. Shelby claims that it is not against the regulations. But he adjusts the brakes nevertheless. With the upgraded brakes, Miles is able to catch up to the Ferrari once more. However, on the second try, the Ferrari's weaker engine fails, sending the Ferrari vehicle off the road. All three of Ford's fielded vehicles take the lead after being unable to compete in the race. Miles has a commanding lead over the competition. Ford management advises that all three Ford vehicles should arrive at the same time in order to enhance aesthetics and solidify their superiority. Miles receives this advice from Shelby, but at first he does not take it seriously, breaking record after record and acting defiantly once more. However, after waiting for the other vehicles, all three Ford successfully complete the race in a row, a half-length ahead of Miles. Even though Miles crossed the finish line first, McLaren was crowned the victor since he started further out from the line and thus was seen to have driven more, which overshadows the success of the Ford team. Shelby reassures Miles that they'll do it properly the following year. He maintains his composure and expresses gratitude for the opportunity to participate in this competition. Miles perishes in an accident at one of the tests 2 months after the race, this time also as a result of brake failure. After hurling an impetuous wrench at Shelby during one of the opening races, Miles' son visits his family 6 months later and receives it from Shelby. Ford was the only American firm to win Le Mans in 1967, 1968, and 1969. In 2001, Miles received a posthumous induction into the American Motorsports Hall of Fame. Shelby designed and improved race vehicles for a very long time, until he passed away in 2012 at the age of 89.